Let's get started with our first news. Tom Aspinall has made headlines once again, this time not for who he's calling out, but for who he's shutting down. When asked about the possibility of facing Jon Jones next, Aspenol didn't dance around the topic. He completely shut down any and all talk about that matchup, making it crystal clear that it's just not on the table right now. Not only did he dismiss the idea, but he confirmed that he already knows who his next opponent will be. The only problem, he couldn't reveal the name just yet. But what he did say grabbed everyone's attention. According to Tom, this is going to be the toughest fight of his entire career. Let that sink in. We're not talking about just another title defense. He's calling this the most dangerous challenge he's ever faced. And despite all the speculation, he wanted fans to know one thing up front. It's not Jon Jones. Now, when you look at the current heavyweight landscape, one name jumps out as the most logical opponent, Cyril Gane. Gane is coming off a controversial win over Alexander Volkov, and many fans have been quick to throw his name into the mix for a title shot. But there's a twist. Some fans believe Volkov might actually be more deserving of the shot than Gane. The problem is, Aspinall already destroyed Volkov in their first meeting. And let's be honest, there isn't much hype around running that one back. Cyril Gane, on the other hand, is a different kind of beast. He's slick, he's technical, and he brings a level of striking and movement that can give any heavyweight problems, including Aspinall. There's no doubt that Gane has the tools to test Tom in ways other opponents haven't. But here's the million-dollar question. Is he the guy Tom was referring to when he described his next fight as the toughest test of his career? That's where things get really interesting. Some fans have started throwing out another possibility. What if Aspinall is hinting at Alex Pereira? But that idea seems unlikely, at least for now. Pereira has already said publicly that he's planning to fight Magomed Ankalaev in the fall. So if it's not Jones, probably not Pereira, and definitely not Volkov. Who's left? Cyril Gane still feels like the most probable option, but then you have voices like Uncle Chael chiming in, claiming he has insider info from Pereira's team, info that suggests Pereira is planning to move up to heavyweight next. Just when we thought the heavyweight storyline was calming down, it looks like things are heating up again. As for Aspinall himself, he explained exactly how he's approaching this upcoming fight. He said he can't afford to think, oh, I'll just blast through this guy and move on to a legacy fight after that. He knows that kind of thinking would kill his performance. Instead, he treats every opponent like the most dangerous fighter in the world. It doesn't matter, he said. If I'm ranked number 1 in the world or number 100, the guy I'm fighting next is the most dangerous person I'll ever face. He even admitted that he's scared of that person. That's why he's going all in, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. He said he wants to give 100% of everything to this fight. And that's exactly what separates Aspinall from so many others. He's not looking past anyone. He's not chasing names or headlines. He's staying locked in on the fight in front of him. And whether it's Gane, Pereira, or someone else entirely, Tom Aspinall is preparing for war. Moving on to another news, Daniel Cormier recently broke down the idea of a potential super fight that has fans buzzing. A clash between Kamaru Usman and Islam Makhachev. According to DC, if Islam can successfully get through Jack Della Maddalena and capture the welterweight title, then a matchup with Usman could be something truly special. But what's most intriguing is how Cormier believes the fight could unfold. Not as a wrestling war, but as a striking battle. Cormier explained that when you have two high-level wrestlers facing off, their grappling often cancels each other out. That's when things get interesting, because it forces them to rely on their striking, and the fight becomes more of a chess match on the feet. Both Islam and Usman have made major strides in their stand-up game, and if they meet inside the octagon, that striking battle could be electric. Let's not forget, this would be a massive fight. We're talking about Kamaru Usman, a future Hall of Famer and one of the most dominant welterweights in UFC history. He held the belt for years, defended it multiple times, and during his prime, looked nearly untouchable. And now, after some tough losses, he's back. He recently picked up a big win over Buckley and looked absolutely sharp, motivated, focused, and most importantly, refreshed. He's not done yet. Cormier emphasized that Usman's experience, toughness, and elite fight IQ make him a real threat, especially if Islam even makes it past Jack Della Maddalena, which according to DC is far from a guaranteed win. Jack is a young, dangerous striker with knockout power and momentum behind him. That fight alone is going to be a war, and Islam will have to be at his best to get through it. But if Islam does pull it off, If he becomes a 2-division champion, then a fight with Usman could go down as one of the biggest and most fascinating matchups in UFC history. The stakes, the storylines, the legacy implications, it would have everything. Cormier asked the million-dollar question, how do you even break that fight down? On one hand, you have 2 wrestlers with serious hands, and when that happens, the wrestling usually takes a back seat and we get fireworks on the feet. DC also reminded everyone that Islam is a far better striker than people give him credit for. Just look at his fight with Dustin Poirier. A lot of fans claimed it was a close fight, but the reality is, Islam won all 5 rounds before submitting Dustin. It was a complete shutout. Cormier explained that Islam is judged differently because he's been so dominant. People act like Poirier gave him trouble, when in reality, he got completely outclassed. So imagine matching that version of Islam against a hungry, rejuvenated Kamaru Usman. The question becomes, can Usman use his size and reach to land that jab, keep Islam at bay, and control the pace? Or will Islam's timing, precision, and underrated striking allow him to close the distance and take over? Cormier made it clear he wasn't picking a winner, but he loves this matchup because when you put 2 world-class wrestlers with striking skills inside the cage, you're guaranteed high-level violence. This is the kind of fight that could headline any card and leave fans on the edge of their seats. Now let's talk about Cory Sandhagen, who recently broke down how he believes he can beat Morab Devalishev. With their showdown becoming more and more likely, this insight from Cory is definitely something worth paying attention to. At this point, it seems obvious that Cory is probably next in line for the Georgian machine. He's one of the few elite bantamweights left who hasn't already been steamrolled by Morab's relentless style. Most fighters simply can't deal with what Morab brings to the cage. Insane pressure, non-stop takedown attempts, and the kind of cardio that turns every fight into a nightmare. He just keeps coming. No breaks, no breathing room, no slowing down. But Cory Sandhagen is no ordinary opponent. He brings a completely different kind of problem to the table. He's tall for the division, he's long, he's slick, he's extremely technical, and he's got real knockout power in his strikes. He's also one of the smartest strikers in the game, constantly switching stances, mixing up angles, and creating openings where most fighters wouldn't see them. Still, even with all of that, beating Morab is no easy task. The guy is a freak athlete. His conditioning is so absurd that many believe he might have the best cardio in all of MMA, maybe even in the sport's history. What separates Morab from other cardio-heavy fighters is that he doesn't just survive into the 5th round. He fights with the same intensity in round 5 as he does in round 1, and that's terrifying for anyone standing across from him. So how does Cory plan to deal with that? According to Sandhagen, the key is to take control early. He says the worst thing you can do against Morab is let him set the pace. If you're reacting to him, his pressure, his chaos, then you've already lost half the battle. Instead, Cory wants to be the one dictating the terms of the fight. He wants to be first, stay mobile, land hard, clean shots while constantly moving, make Morab adjust to his rhythm. He also spoke about the mental aspect of the fight. Cory admitted that everyone gets tired in a 25-minute war. That's normal, but the real challenge is keeping your mind sharp when your body wants to quit. He said his brain has to be ready to handle 25 straight minutes of Morab's intensity. That's where the fight is really going to be won or lost, in the mental battlefield. Technically speaking, Cory gave Morab full credit. He said Morab is a phenomenal wrestler and has now added solid submission skills to his game. But outside of that, Cory doesn't view him as the most dangerous fighter in the world. The challenge, he says, is staying focused, staying sharp, and most importantly, leading the dance. If Sandhagen can do that, if he can stay one step ahead, he believes he can pull off what no one else has done, beat Morab at his own game. Now, let's move on to another news. Robert Whitaker recently gave his take on one of the most anticipated middleweight title fights of the year. Khamzat Chimaev versus Drakkar du Plessis, scheduled to headline UFC 319 on August 16th. Khamzat continues to be the official betting favorite going into the bout. And it's easy to see why. He's undefeated in the UFC and has absolutely destroyed nearly every opponent he's faced. From the moment he entered the promotion, Chimaev has looked like a force of nature, blitzing through top talent, finishing fights early, and rarely being tested for more than a round. That's the kind of dominance that makes people believe he's the future of the division, and why many sportsbooks have him as a slight favorite to walk away with the belt. But here's where things get interesting. Robert Whitaker has fought both men, He stood across from Drakkar and from Khamzat. He knows what each of them brings into the cage, and according to Whitaker, he doesn't quite agree with the betting odds. When asked for his prediction during an interview with Fox Sports Australia, Whitaker said he's actually leaning toward Drakkar in this one. He broke the fight down into one simple but crucial question. Can Khamzat finish Drakkar on the ground before he gets back to his feet? That's the million-dollar question. Whitaker believes if Chimaev can't get that early finish, if he can't wrap things up quickly on the mat, then the fight starts shifting in Drakkar's favor. He said bluntly, if he doesn't finish him on the ground, I think he loses. And Whitaker isn't alone in that thinking. Other fighters have echoed the same idea. Sean Strickland, for example, has made it clear that he believes Drakkar will still be champion after UFC 319. And it's not because they doubt Khamzat's skill, it's because they recognize how tough and unpredictable Drakkar can be when the fight goes deep. Chimaev is known for coming out with insane aggression. He wants to finish fast. He thrives on chaos, pressure, and quick domination. But Dricus du Plessis is a different kind of fighter. He's not flashy, he doesn't dominate quickly, but what he does do is survive, adapt, and come back stronger as the fight progresses. He's got real durability, high-level composure, and an unorthodox style that throws people off. That's what makes this matchup so fascinating. It's a clash of styles. On one side, you have the unstoppable force, Khamzat Chimaev, looking to smash his way to the belt. On the other, you've got Drakkar, the calm, calculated storm that just doesn't go away. If Khamzat can finish him early, he walks away champion. But if Drakkar survives that first wave, things could get very, very interesting. Whitaker's insight adds even more weight to the fight, and it's clear this title bout at UFC 319 is anything but predictable. Now, let's talk about Ilia Taporia, who recently made a bold claim that has stirred up the MMA world. He said he would have beaten a prime Conor McGregor. With Ilia now holding the UFC lightweight title, comparisons to McGregor have been flying left and right, and when asked the classic what-if question, who would win if they faced off during McGregor's prime, Ilia didn't even blink. He responded confidently, saying, "Without a doubt, I'd beat McGregor." He didn't just throw that out for attention. Ilia backed it up by pointing out how much the sport has evolved over the years. He compared it to football players from the 80s or 90s, guys who were legends in their time, but admitted the game has changed. Training, technique, science, it's all better now. According to Ilia, the same thing applies in MMA. Sure, McGregor was a superstar, but in today's game, he believes there are better fighters. It's also worth remembering that Ilia is nearly 8 years younger than McGregor, and in a sport where every detail counts, training methods, recovery tools, fight IQ, nutrition, that generational gap can make a big difference. The McGregor of 2015 was revolutionary, but Taporia says in 2025 the sport has passed him by. Now, whether you agree or not, it's a bold take, and it's got people talking. Do you think Taporia would have actually beaten a prime McGregor? Of course, the odds of that fantasy matchup ever happening are close to zero. McGregor hasn't fought since 2021, and unfortunately, he stayed in the headlines more for the wrong reasons than for anything related to fighting. But the tension between the two is real. Remember that fiery duel livestream last fall when McGregor went off? He issued a wild warning to Taporia, saying he'd grab him by the scruff, slap his nose off, and cave his head in. He called Ilia a little fool and promised to box his jaw in on sight. It was vintage McGregor, loud, aggressive, and personal. Meanwhile, Eddie Alvarez, who actually fought McGregor at his peak, also had something to say. He praised Ilia for finishing 3 elite opponents back-to-back. He said even if those wins were just decisions, they'd be impressive, but to finish them the way Taporia did, that's something special. As for what's next, Taporia recently made headlines again at a press conference in Spain. He joked that the UFC should book him to fight both Paddy Pimblett and Islam Makhachev on the same night. For me, yes, he said, next Saturday. Makhachev in the first round, Paddy in the second. Now that's a statement. Now let's finish with this wild and unexpected news. Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler have both expressed strong interest in fighting at a future UFC event at the White House. Yes, you heard that right, the White House. It all started when McGregor posted an AI-generated image of himself and Chandler standing in front of the iconic building. The caption, "The only place where disputes truly get settled." Classic Conor, but that wasn't all. He followed it up with a patriotic shout-out, "Happy 4th of July, USA," excited with President Trump announcing a UFC fight event at the White House. I would be honored, count me in. McGregor has always been about making statements, but this one had people buzzing across the internet. He then went on to talk about what sets him apart, his accuracy. "Most do not know this," he wrote, "but in my right eye, I have 2010 vision. I am the 1% of humans that has this. In my left, I am 20/20. Accuracy is final." He reminded everyone just how deadly he's been inside the octagon. "I've got the most KOs of all by a long shot, and I've been chilling on my yachts the last 4 years. To return at the White House with my sniper accuracy would be a very intriguing offer and would bring me back to focus on my return correctly." And then came Michael Chandler, never one to back down or miss a chance to fire back. In his usual fiery style, he replied, "Anybody fancy a good old-fashioned passionate red, white, and blue ass whooping on the lawn of the White House?" It was exactly the kind of response fans have come to expect from Chandler, intense, direct, and ready to go to war. These two have been circling each other for what feels like years now. The matchup has been teased, delayed, and speculated about more times than anyone can count, but if the UFC really does manage to pull off a card at the White House, McGregor versus Chandler would be the perfect fight to headline it. Imagine the spectacle, the setting, the energy, a fight on the lawn of the most powerful building in the United States. With Conor's charisma and Chandler's warrior spirit, it would be one of the most talked about events in combat sports history. One thing's for sure, if this actually happens, they're both ready to put on a show.